It's Sunday, the 20th of August, 2023. And in this evening's show, we are discussing a hat-trick of stalemates as Blackpool put in another lacklustre display, this time coming against Orient at Bloomfield Road yesterday. And I'm John Aspinall, and this is the Seasiders Podcast Match Reaction Show. Blackpool 0, Leyton Orient 0.
Ollie's already changed the world. A small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Tim, wake up!
Is it finished yet?
The game's finished. The game's over.
I fought for that.
Unbeaten, not conceded a goal. Everything is rosy. Everything is rosy. Isn't it right, Tim?
Well,
it's a joy to be a Blackpool fan at the moment.
The pies are A1. So, no sausage rolls, but the pies are superb. So, all is good in the Moretti.
How's things in the south, Matt?
Which Matt?
Mitch. Matt, you're going to have to change it to Mitch. Get rid of Matt from Mitch Cook's left foot. You are now Mitch.
That's fine.
As you have also been tracked down by Mitch Cook's ex-girlfriend.
It's like a baptism on the Seasiders Podcast, isn't it? A little bit of water on your head and change your name.
Yeah. Just get Gary in the font, and I'll change my name. Yeah, no, it's fine. In the south, it's all good. On and off the ball, in and out of possession, everything is fantastic. The group are happy.
Matt, good to have you back. How was it from your vantage point? Where do you sit now, by the way?
I'm still in the back of the north, Block C.
You're still there? Right, okay.
Still there, yeah. We keep wondering whether we should change because as you get older, 27 rows of steps just get harder and harder each season. So,
How have I never seen you in Block C when we're in the same block?
I've been avoiding you, Tim.
I look down from above to you, but
we're looking down on me.
Yeah, looking down on you from behind.
I was saying that to Nick.
Hi.
I've moved into the northwest, and we're right at the back. And I was like, God, Jesus Christ! You know, like by the time you're there, you get to the back row, you're clutching your heart. It's like a trip up Everest. It's like, Christ, I need to get a bit fitter.
But we need to get the walking club going again, John, don't we? We need to get out.
Yeah, no biking, no walking. What's everyone done today, by the way? We had a footy tournament in Chorley. We were robbed. Played 4-1-2, drew 1, lost 1. Ball went over the line to put us through to knockout stages. Referee didn't give it. Where's VAR in grassroots?
I know, that's where it needs to be.
Should have gone for 0-0. Played for penalties.
What do you play? Do you play 3-5-2 or 3-5-1-1, John? What do you do?
You invert your fullbacks, John.
Yeah. I told the kids you're playing inverted fullbacks today, and they just gave me the very blank look, which was the very blank look that a lot of Blackpool fans were across their faces when they saw this, which was the lineup. Grimshaw, Casey, Ekpateta, Husband, Hamilton, Weir, Norburn, Morgan, Lyons, Beasley, and Lavery. The inversion was still alive and kicking in the form of CJ and Lyons. 2 changes though, Tim.
Yeah, so we saw Weir come in, didn't we, for Carey, and we saw Beasley come. Well, arguably Beasley maybe for Carey, and Dougal drops out as well for Weir. I could see the logic behind that. The problem is, and without wishing to be too negative, I don't think Beasley's the answer. And then when you look at the bench, you think, well, we've actually got nothing where we can change it up front, which obviously we'll come on to. So I can't say I was surprised, and I can't say I was disappointed with the changes, but I felt that when I look at the bench, I felt that we couldn't really change it. up top if it didn't work, and logic and experience tells us that it won't. So they were my observations. But to be fair, I think the other thing I would say is Casey's kept his place and Pennington can't get back in the team. I think that's probably, in his case, right. I think he's actually really sort of overall played quite well so far this season. I think it would have been a mistake to drop him. I think when he comes to Marv, I think there's an argument maybe Pennington should replace Marv at the moment. But again, we'll come on to that. But yeah, otherwise, pretty much what I expected.
Matt, Smith, thoughts when you saw the lineup? We're pleased to see we're in.
I was, yeah. I think, unfortunately, Carey was droppable after the last couple of performances in my eyes. And when I looked at the lineup, I thought, well, that's arguably our strongest 11, really, given what's available in the squad. And there is obviously one absentee still who, I don't know what's going on with Tribal. He could have made an impact somewhere possibly, but it's obviously there's rumours and counter rumours about what's going on there. But I looked at that and I just thought, well, it's about as strong an 11 as we can probably put out there, really. But as we've already mentioned, it leaves nothing on the bench to change a game. But that's where we are currently, really.
Mitch, over to you. Thoughts when you saw that? No Apter on the bench even this time. I know you mentioned him last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, Tim and Matt have already said the same thing, but for me, I just looked at the bench and thought, God, that's boring. You know, no disrespect to any of the individuals I'm going to name, but Connolly, Virtue and Dougal, put them together as a three, and it's probably the most boring midfield you could imagine, but yet they're all there on the bench. Do we need all of them there? You know, we've got Rob Apter, we've got Brad Holmes, we've got, you know, Matt just mentioned Tommy Tribal. We've got other players who have got potentially game-changing qualities, but we seem to have set up the bench as if we're going, away to, I don't know who's really good in this division. We're going away to Derby or something, and you know, a point's not a bad result. And what if we get? It just felt negative. The starting lineup, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but I kind of missed the bingo machine because it's been a bit same, hasn't it? And I thought that was interesting that we've had 3 games in a week and he hasn't really done that rotation that he used to do. There's players who've played, you know, full 90 minutes for 3 games in a week, and that's something he used to very much shy away from, but it's whether it's by necessity or whether that's a change in the way he thinks now, I don't know. But yeah.
Okay, we have someone in the chant who goes by the name of Nomis Reldas. And if you read that backwards, it's a bit cryptic. From I
wonder who that could be.
Nomis says the whole club needs to have a positive attitude. Negativity can be a disease if it's allowed to spread. Without an antidote to suppress it. Well, Nomis, we need to see a bit more on the pitch, I think, to stem that spread of negativity. Wonder who's behind this.
I'm going for Raggy.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Wygar.
Right then, onto the game, if we must. The first half.
It's first half again.
Oh God, I've not changed it from last week. Hang on, Tim, from the Tommy Tribal appreciation isn't going down very well, is it? That's probably why he's not been involved. There we go. First half. Tim, started quite brightly, I thought, pressing.
We did. It reminded a little bit of the Burton game, to be honest, where we sort of like really we're pressing quite well. Their number 19 was like a worse version of Marv when Marv's doing as bad as Marv can do. So I kept thinking like we really, really need to home in on him, and we sort of did, but probably not as much as we should have done. And I must admit, listen, I started off with the most positive prediction I could ever do this season, which is that we're going to win the league. I think that's probably slightly going to need to be revised at some point. But I thought we started the game well. I thought we seemed to pass it around. We seemed to start games well. And then I think we lose our mojo a bit. We seem to and again, as the game develops, there's a pattern, isn't there? There's a pattern that starts and continues and never changes, which is that we dominate possession at the back. We give it to Marv. Marv gives it to the centre-back, and then the centre-back gives it back to Marv, and then he gives it back to centre-back, and then he gives it back to Marv. And then Marv thinks, shit, I'm actually going to have to do something now, and he launches the ball upfield. And every now and again, we might get a touch. To be fair, Beasley won a few headers, I thought, in the early parts of the game.
Well, he played in Lavery for that chance, chance early doors.
And that was a great chance. And to be honest, I genuinely think that if that had gone in, I think it could have opened the floodgates for us a little bit. And the keeper made a great save. And listen, everything in that move probably epitomises us at our best, So we move the ball forward quick. It's come to Beasley. Beasley's done the right thing and laid it off. And Lavery's done what a striker does, and it's take a shot first time. When you see stuff like that, you think, brilliant. That's exactly what we want. Game on, we're going to absolutely hammer them. And that's where I was at that point. Was it about 10, 11 minutes, whatever that was in the game? That's where I was at. And then obviously it changes a bit. But at that point, I was thinking there's no doubt we're going to win the game. Absolutely no doubt whatsoever.
How wrong you were.
How wrong I was.
Matt, do you remember our old friend Joe Pygott from Wimbledon?
Indeed, yes.
AKA
right.
Joe Pygott.
That's right. Yeah.
Made with that name, weren't they?
There was a little bit of a clamour for him, I think, a couple of years back, wasn't there? Because he was hitting the net quite regularly for Wimbledon. So, I mean, I was like Tim. I thought we actually passed the ball forward more times in the opening 10 minutes since that Burton game than I can remember. Obviously, I'm one of those unfortunate ones that did the 600-mile round trip to Exeter last weekend. So I've had a real great fortnight of feast of football. And we looked okay. And then I did turn around to the lads I was with, and I think it was about the 18th minute. And I said, we're just in danger of this petering out already. We'd just run out of ideas, run out of steam. Same old problems that we've had for the last 2.5 games, 3 games almost, or whatever it's been, had started to re-emerge, and lo and behold, it just didn't catch fire again, did it? After that sort of initial spurt. So the first half just sort of petered out like several other first halves have so far. And they had a couple of decent efforts, I think, and it was just all a bit samey, wasn't it? Really. We're just getting into a bit of a lull with things, and we just can't seem to dig ourselves out of it at the moment.
Mitch, over to you. I'm just glancing at the old momentum graph as I do, and that does ring true to what Matt's just said there. There's 2 huge red areas for Leyton Orient after we've had that initial spell. From my recollection, they had 3 big chances to score in the first half. The first coming off from it was a Pigott header right in front of Grimmy's made a great save. After that, we've had when Marv's caught in possession down the left, Pigott making a nuisance of himself, and that
was arguably a better save, John, because that was, for me, that was looping in, that was spooning in, and I thought Grimmy pulled off an absolute worldie to stop that one going in.
There was the worldie before it as well, wasn't there?
They were both. They were both tremendous saves. I mean, I was that bored against Port Vale that I watched Grimmy sort of for a bit, just watching the way he tracks the game, if you like, watching the way he kind of moves around his box. He's just so tuned in. He's kind of almost like Zen in the way he's he's quiet, isn't he? But he's just so ready. The first one he got a lot of stick, but he was at times a brilliant instinct keeper, Maxwell. It was kind of Maxwell-esque in the way that he kind of clawed it out for it was close to him, and they can be really hard. And the second one, he kind of bent backwards almost to pull that out from under the bar. But then what came next really was probably the most contentious bit of the game. Was despite his fantastic save, the ball sort of loops up into the air, drops right in the middle of the goal to one of their lads who's about to push it in before Ollie Casey runs across and sort of two-hand shoves him out of the way, and somehow it doesn't get given. And I think we got away with that. I mean, the fella who sits next to me, who I get on with, both me and him went pen straight away. Having watched it back, I thought pen straight away. I think we got away with one there.
I think so. And so it was, for me, that was two big chances for Orient. And there was a third, if you remember, just a minute after that. A half volley, sort of a punt into the box. It's dropped to, I can't remember what that lad was called, but again, it was another chance and it's just whistled wide. So could have been 3-1 to them at half time.
Yeah, I think probably where my concern comes in the way that we're playing at the moment is that we have a huge amount of possession. I think somebody gave a stat out last night on AVFTT that Marv completed the most passes in the game. But if you actually drill down into that, I think you'll find that probably 85% of them were a square pass to another centre-back. And so it's like stats, isn't it? What does a stat mean? If you then analyse where the forward play is going and what we're doing with that, then it becomes, I think that's when it comes back to the unbelievably predictable way that we played as the game went on, which was to do that ridiculous amount of central passing in defence that never gets you anywhere, just for possession's sake. And then when we've run out of options, we launch it forward to. And to be fair, at least we had Beasley up there today, which in other games we haven't had. But it's very I find it very one-dimensional and quite worrying. And then I compare it the way that Leyton Orient were playing, who are basically lost the last 3 games. And I thought I've got to call it as it is. I thought they played a better football. I thought they were at least trying to play on the floor and trying to get down the wings and trying to do stuff. And I've got to listen. I'm not, everybody knows I'm not a CJ fan, but I think CJ in his most effective plays on the left. And yet at the moment we seem to be, and listen, Phil, bless him, has been banging this drum on AVFTT, but he's right. Inverted wingers are fine. Like if you've got Bowler, who's playing on the right, and he's got cutting in very, very effectively, that works. But when have you ever seen CJ really cut in? He doesn't do it. So he's going to be always going to be a lot better if he plays on the left, and then we can play. We could play whoever it is on the right, whether we play Lions or whatever. I think Lions is better on the right than left, although he can play on the left. And so I just think I don't mind us doing inverted stuff if there's a sort of a game plan behind it, which is that we're going to cut in. But in that first half, I know we swapped it around a bit later on, but in that first half, did anybody see either of them really cut in? I didn't. And I thought, and to be fair, I thought Lyons got a little bit down on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, they got a couple of crosses in. And CJ did a little bit down the right-hand side and got crosses in, but neither of them are playing on their most effective foot.
Tim, it reduces the effectiveness of Lyons. He looks lost in that position. It's a complete waste of his talent.
Now, I would play him there if I've got Gabriel at right back, because I think I want both of them in the team. But when CJ naturally does better on the left, and listen, every time I've seen CJ have a great game, he's played on the left.
I think
yeah, we're playing him on the right, and we've got both of them out. For me, we've got both of them out of position, and whether you think they both should start or whether somebody should be different. The reality is neither are actually playing in the natural position.
I think the concerning thing is that our way of creating chances seems to be to press. And if the other team isn't shaken by us pressing, then we don't seem to have any other real option. We don't really seem to be playing through teams in any way, and we don't have a dominant centre forward, and we don't really particularly have anybody to dribble past anybody. That's what's sort of concerned me over the last two games. We've been very solid. There's lots of things that are good to see in comparison to last season, but it's like we sail in this game. It's like we sailed along with the wind for about 10, 15 minutes. And then, when a sailing ship hits the doldrums and it just goes, and it just stops. And it was like we just stopped and nothing happened for about 25 minutes. And we didn't know, it's like we didn't have an idea of how we were going to get to the other end of the pitch other than boot it over the top or pass it around amongst ourselves until we booted it over the top. And I think that's what we really need to address, is that sense of whether it's the confidence of the players that we've got or whether it's the quality of the players that we've got. Either way, we've got to address that, because I think, you can't just expect to score from pressing. Pressing is very useful. Everybody does it. You need to be able to press well, but you need to have other ways to put pressure on the other team other than the high press.
There was one thing I noticed. The midfield never seemed to want the ball, which puts Marv kind of on his back foot. No one was showing for him. No one was showing for him.
Do you not think we've got about 3 or 4 Ray Wilkins?
Yeah.
The water carriers, the Didier Deschamps.
I think that's the problem, isn't it, Tim? We're just a bit samey, aren't we? There's no spark. There's nobody who. I mean, give him his chance. We might, be that player particularly. But it's difficult in the formation that we're at and how we're playing at the moment. There's definitely a lack of somebody who can take the ball and actually go past somebody. That's for sure. I mean, somebody mentioned earlier about their midfielders seem to do it, and the Port Vale lads were doing it as well on Tuesday night. We just don't seem to be wanting or brave enough or whatever to just have a go, just to carry the ball for 15 yards and try and take somebody on. It's a case of getting it one touch and then giving it back again, getting it one touch and giving it back. And anytime we do have any momentum and going forward, it seems to come from Casey and Jimmy Husband most of the time rather than anybody else, which is just bizarre at the moment. So, it's very much, we all know it's very much a work in progress, and it's easy to get negative about these things. And we all are on a bit of a downer about it, because we like to see exciting football, but we're just not getting it at the moment. And that's what's, pissing us all off, really. We're not just getting any sort of entertainment. It's just not happening for us. Nothing's clicking yet, and you just can't see where that spark is going to happen.
Listen, picking up on a point Craig's made in the comments, and this is to be fair, I've actually had a look at who we've played and how they've got on.
Do you want to read it out, Tim?
I think we've had. Craig's, just for the benefit of the audio, Craig's mentioned we probably couldn't have had an easier start to the season, and actually, Port Vale probably have had when I've looked back at the results they've had since we played, I think they won yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. But Burton and Orient, listen, I think in anybody's analysis of where the season's going to pan out, they're both going to be very, very close to the bottom, if not right at the bottom. I think Burton could well be right at the bottom. And after that first half hour against Burton, it was very much a little bit like it was against Orient and a little bit like it was against Port Vale. And it worries me this. It worries me this because, Wigan have battered Bolton 4-0 yesterday. That's our next home game. And
won 4 out of 4 as well, aren't they?
So, so they're in an artificially low position because, of course, they started on -8, whatever it is. So I think they're only showing +4 at the moment. But are we going to beat them? Playing like we've played in the last 4 games?
No chance.
Well, I don't think we will. So something's got to change. And if I'm trying to be positive, and I do try to be positive despite what some people think, I would say that Critchley does start slow. If we look back at the stats, we started slow in 2020, 2021. Albeit there we had a shocking defence, and this year seems to have got Marv accepted probably a very tight defence. I think we're the only team not to concede a goal. But there's no point in not conceding goals if you don't score any. And I look at the players we've lost. We've lost the likes of Kesha, we've lost Bowler, we've lost Yates. I think Medine could still do a job for us if he was fit. Pervade. All these players, all these attacking players who created all the chances for us, even in a difficult season last season, they've all gone. And I look at what we've got in to replace. And the reality is we've not seen Joseph yet, really. But other than that, what have we got? For me, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when we're bringing Matty Virtue on to change the game for us, that tells me everything I need to know, in that we haven't really got the options there, because I'd rather put... Listen, I've sort of heard a thing on AVFTT today. The reason they want to play Brad Holmes is because we want him to be able to go to 2 clubs this year, potentially at least, rather than 1, to aid his development. But I think we needed him on the bench yesterday. And his development's important, but Blackpool FC is important, and having options. There was no option for Beasley, really, for me. There was no proper option for Beasley to bring him off, or Lavery if he got injured. And it worries me. And I know Matt's a big fan of Actor, and I like him as well. I think he's got the ability to unlock defences. He doesn't make the bench, but we have 3 water carriers on there. And I think, why? We don't need 3. We're actually padding the bench out with the most experience rather than what we need.
And again, this week, we sign another midfielder, don't we?
Yeah.
When everyone's hoping that a striker's going to come out of the back of that van. And we're still waiting for a more forward-thinking player to just to make us a little bit more positive all round, really. We just haven't got there yet. And I know it's not as easy as just plucking a player out of wherever. I'm not that naive, but surely there's got to be a lot of work being done in the background. And with David Downs and his contacts and all the rest of it, you'd like to think that there's some irons in the fire that we'll be able to pull out in the next week or whatever's left of the transfer window. But if nothing does happen, then it's going to be pretty much more of the same for the next few months, isn't it?
I'm sure the club thought they'd have Joseph, didn't they?
Yeah, sure.
And whether it's a repetition of his existing injury or whether it's a new injury, the problem is because it's all cloak and dagger. You don't actually hear the details, so we don't know. My gut reaction is it's probably a repetition of the original injury, but that's just a guess. But that's worrying because he was a £2 million player when he moved to Swansea, and I think as you saw in the other part, really, really pleased we got him. But if he could be out for an extended period of time, then we actually need a replacement. We need a replacement now because Beasley
2 wide players as well.
Isn't the answer. I think Beasley. We've already listen. People can improve. I don't think anybody realistically thinks that Beasley is the answer. If we want to get promoted, if we want to just tread water in this division, then he'll do okay. He'll probably score 10 goals this season. He won't score 20. I bet my house that he won't score 20 this season. There's absolutely no chance. So we need to try and find that person who can add extra value. If Joseph isn't badly injured, that might be him. But if he's out till Christmas, then we need to find a replacement because you can't leave Lavery up front in that scenario like that every single week. Because when we play Portsmouth and Derby and all the teams who are going to be in and around the mix and the Boltons and the Wigans, and we're not going to win games. We just aren't.
Well, I think what gets me is that I think it was about 70 minutes again. Just the lad sitting next to me, we said they're starting to look knackered, Leyton Orient now. And we had no swap to make. We had no energy to bring on. And, Yeah, Brad Holmes
Thompson
is probably
maybe. Thompson maybe Mitch as well. He wasn't even on the bench. He could have
whoever,
done
but these kids who. I'm not trying to say that they are the answer. I'm not saying that they're League One quality. I'm not saying they're promotion quality, but they can come on and run around for 15 minutes. And I don't know what he's frightened of. I don't know what's so scary about the idea that you might go on and go on, Brad, go and make a hero for yourself. And he goes and runs around like a nutcase for 10 minutes. That's actually quite a useful tactic. Not to mention them down the road, but they had a 17-year-old assisted their goal, and they had a 16-year-old on the bench. They're a division above us. At the end of last season, our caretaker manager gave a left back his debut in the last game at Norwich. He brought on Brad Holmes. The whole ground in that Millwall game, when the game we went down, he chucked on Holmes, went 2 up front. The whole ground went, well, that's what you've got. You're playing the cards. And I don't know why he's filling the bench with the players he's filling. I can only assume it's because he doesn't want to alienate or annoy some of those senior players by not giving them a place on the bench and putting a kid on instead. But I just feel like we need that energy and we need that spark. I feel sympathy for the fact he hasn't got the energy and the spark. He hasn't got the established players to be those sort of change makers, if you like, those points of difference. But then use the nearest thing you've got, which is those youth team players. That's what I think. And I felt it about him last time as well, that he was resistant to doing that. But there we go.
Okay, on to the second half. So dull and boring. Eddie was on his iPad all game, pretty much. And normally I'll pull it off and say, no, you're not going to be watching the game. I said, away you go. Away you go. Can I go on it? Can I play Roblox with you? Second half, then. We've hit the post, haven't we, Mitch, down your end? Was it Lavery or Morgan? I couldn't really tell.
No, Morgan had a shot. It was a good save from their keeper, but it dropped almost perfectly for Lavery, who just kind of sort of ran onto it and took the shot in one, and it hit the base of the post. It was, that as much as their penalty shout was really, I think, the point that we got away with one. They got away with one a bit there. It was, it was probably 2 decent chances, decent save, and it just went the wrong side of the post.
Matt, Leyton Orient had another good chance. I think it was on a 70-odd minutes. Blazed one over after from their left back got to the byline.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm probably in a bit of a daze at this particular point of the game, and I might have fallen asleep.
I was so bored after half an hour. I went downstairs and I thought, well, at least I'll be guaranteed to get served under the West. So I was just watching it with a kind of seaside as ale, just glumly watching the game.
I think there was just that general sort of like Lord's hum around the ground, wasn't
General
there?
malaise, I think. General malaise is what he's looking for.
Everyone was just chatting around, talking about what they're doing tonight and over the weekend and where have you been on your holidays and all that
everybody ended up on the phones, didn't they? You end up like looking at your phones because there's nothing going on the pitch, and everybody I've spoken to and everybody who's posted since have all said how boring it was. It was just. Football shouldn't be boring.
It was actually depressing.
Whatever else goes on, it should never be boring. It shouldn't bore you, and it is boring.
Yeah. There's no entertainment value whatsoever in watching that.
No, and it's funny, isn't it? Because it works. As soon as the fans get bored, then obviously we don't sing and shout and stamp and all the rest of it, and obviously, it's sort of, you need something to lift you, don't you, sometimes? And you just don't. You're just not getting it at the moment. And, we can play our part and all that, but I think everyone's just a bit sort of fed up at the moment, aren't they?
I think your point about Eddie is a good one. Obviously, I take my lad, and there's part of me that can understand it in a sort of grown-up, sensible, professional football context of instilling the basics and blah blah blah. But when you sat with a 12-year-old, then or a 10-year-old, then they're not interested in that. And it has been, 3 games Matt suffered, but 2 games of you'd wonder how they'd make a 5 minutes highlight package out of both of the games put together. And that is part of it. And it's easy to say that it's naive to ask for entertainment and you can't have everything, but it's just feels so, I don't know, conservative. It feels so cautious, and it doesn't even have the kind of, so at least when it's calamitous, you can get angry. There's just nothing to even get angry about, because they're just kind of all
3 points off the top, Matt. Come on.
Yeah, everybody's running about doing a solid job. And really, honestly, the game, the player that I've most enjoyed watching in the last couple of games, somebody mentioned it in the chat, I think, or maybe it was Matt before, is Jimmy Husband. And when he's the creative fulcrum of the team, then you kind of got to wonder. I mean, I love the guy to bits, I really do. But he's not exactly a box office creative player, is he? But it appears that
I think against Port Vale, Matt, he's realised that there's nothing happening. There's no.
He did it against Exeter.
There's nothing going on, and he took it upon himself to go and make things happen, and he did. And he's been brilliant last two games.
He did it in the last 10 minutes against Exeter. It was him that was leading us out against Exeter. He was absolutely outstanding against Port Vale. He really, really was. I had a look at the numbers. He won 8 defensive headers and put 11 crosses in the box. I mean, what kind of stats are those? They're insane. He had, I think, the second most key passes and the highest number of accurate crosses in the game, which is insane, whilst also making the most defensive headers and I think the joint most tackles. I mean, he was a monster in that game, and he was good again. But I mean, that's a nice addition, isn't it? If we're getting Husbands forward, it's a nice bonus, but it can't be the main point of attack for us. We need a bit more. The main
point of attack is Beckenbauer, who's playing in the back. Marv.
Well, have we got to the end of the game yet? I can't remember. Have we got any more things to die? We've got the Lavery chance.
The Lavery chance right at the death, tight angle. Dragged it wide. But it was a tight angle. It was a tight angle.
He did very well to get through. He did very well to get through there, through those two players and the strength. And, he was probably running empty a bit after 3 games. But
if you're Shane Lavery, you're really pissed off playing in this formation and system. You've got to be, because you're just getting diagonals pumped at you left, right, and centre. How tall is he, Lavery? What, 5'9", 5'10"?
No, I think being generous. Yeah, 5'6", I would think.
Right.
Yeah, 5'7", something. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard work for him up there on his, pretty much on his own, isn't it? He's running, probably 5 times further than anybody else, much like Yates did last year, I guess. Really, when Lavery wasn't around either.
I've seen him his hand on his hips a few times, thinking, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah,
and listen, he wants it in the channels, doesn't he? He wants it in the channels, just like he did towards the end. Played in where he could have a bit of a run, cut inside or cut outside, whichever way around it goes, and have a bit of go at them. And that's his strength. Launching the ball from centre back to him, he's never, ever, ever going to win that, is he? Never. And so I can imagine his frustration. And I said at least he had Peasley up there to sort of play off him a little bit. But other than that I think in the first half, I don't think they did too badly together. I was actually thinking well, maybe Beasley can do it. But second half, I don't really remember any point where they interacted together.
He had a dreadful air kick in front of the South on about, I can't remember what it was, in my head it was about 75 minutes, where he just sort of waved his foot half-heartedly at the ball, and it was one of the sort of the weakest efforts I've ever seen. Well, I don't want to take again David Coleman being an absolute gentleman and a scholar, but I've just looked it up on Who Scored, and it says he's 5'8".
I'd say 5'8". Yeah, Wikipedia's not right.
But you play against a 6'4" centre back. You're never going to win it, are you? Never.
You might as well just give them the ball. Just give him it.
Well, no, but actually, that's what we do. I won't mention his name, but a certain journalist messaged me after the game and said that was awful. And I went back to him and said, "This is what happens. We get the ball, we pass it out to the back, we dick about with it for about 2 minutes, passing. And then it ends up with Marv, and Marv does a diagonal launch forward. We lose it. It takes us 2 minutes to get it back. And then we go pass back at the back. Then we do a diagonal launch and lose it. And it's like, I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day, watching the same thing happen over and over and over again. And it's been like that for 3 games now. And I'm thinking, I'm watching every play, and every play ends up working out the same. It's like there's no plan. It's not only there's no plan B, there's no plan, because it is give it to Marv, and let Marv whack it forward. Because that's basically what ends up happening.
Maybe
there's never any midfield showing. There's never anyone showing in the midfield for him.
And listen, I'm not 100% blaming Marv for it, because I think sometimes, and this is where he comes under pressure.
No options.
When he's got no options, then he has to make a decision. And that's when he goes, oh, I don't know what to do. And ends up either cocking it up or just going long. And
maybe we've just not got that far in the Critchley coaching manual yet. We've started at the back well.
I'll be controversial and say Marv cannot play in the middle of a 3 at the back. He can't.
I don't think.
I mean, we love it. We all love him to pieces. We know what his strengths are.
He's got to play in a 4-4-2.
He's just got to play in a back 4. He's just got to play in a back 4.
Because when he plays in a back 4 and he's not the ball playing centre back, he does everything he does brilliantly. Is off the ball, not on the ball.
Yeah,
Marv is an off the ball legend. On the ball, he's ponderous. He's ill-equipped to deal with involving other players in play, and he puts us under. He creates problems for himself and the team.
I do like Craig's comment, though. He's just put, for all Marv can't be a ball-playing defender, he has the ability to run into 20-yard space with the ball. And again, I think that's what marked out Husband over the last couple of games, was the ability to actually run into the grass in front of him and then, lay it off to somebody. And there's this sort of tentativeness that's weird. He picks up the ball, there's 20, 30 yards in front of him, and he just stands there and looks sideways. And yes, a player could show, but I was, I was shouting, just drive with it, just go, because he can do that. And then we're higher up the pitch.
He's obviously not got confidence in his own ability then, has he? Because I saw briefly when Pennington was fit for that first game against Burn, he was the one that was carrying it out into the midfield and passing it and all the rest of it. So you do wonder whether this system, if Pennington's fit, just doesn't suit Marv. And, there could be a swap there coming at the weekend. Who knows? He's going to be away from home at Lincoln, where there's less pressure on him from the home crowd. That, obviously there's a few every time he gets the ball coming from the crowd. And maybe, I don't know, take him sort of out of the firing line if Pennington's fit, and just see if we can get a centre half that moves into that 20-yard gap.
Just to lighten the mood a bit. David Coleman has just put everyone's favourite chizzy called Marva startled antelope yesterday.
It's not far wrong, is it?
No.
Much as we deride Chizzy, that's actually quite funny.
It's pretty good, isn't it, for him?
Right,
Are we sure he meant
hang on, right, that's enough of this game. We're done with it. Let's put it to bed. Let's just do player ratings before we all go mad. Right, Matt, you can start with... Mitch, you start with Grimmy.
Grimmy, good game. 3 good saves. His distribution is... It's not calamitous. It's not remarkable, but it's not calamitous. So 3 good saves. I will go with a 8+.
Tim, you can have Ollie Casey.
I thought he did okay, to be fair. I was never that particularly impressed with him last season, but I think he's done all right. And I do worry with this back 3 how wide the spread, but that's not down to him. I think he did okay. It's an 8.
Right.
What do you think? I was a bit harsh there, or
no, a bit. I'd have been in the 7s personally, but
well, no, but I look at him and I think he's good in possession. He's done nothing wrong. I don't think that back three works particularly well, so I'm not going to criticise him for that. And I just generally think he's done okay.
Oh, actually, he pushed Pickett over and got away with it. So 8. You're right.
That's worthy of the mark.
Casey was decent, I think.
It wasn't exceptional, but I thought I want to listen. I'm not one for doing people down. I think he's actually, since he's come in, he's done really well.
He's done a good job.
I think he probably played a little bit better on Tuesday night than he did on Saturday. But yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
And I'm sticking with it. You're not going to change your mind.
Yeah, have your 8. Right, startled antelope, Matt. Not you, Big Marv.
Yeah, no, it's I was more of a sleeping hippopotamus in the stand when we started antelope. Big Marv, I do love him, but sometimes you just have to sort of watch him through sort of fingers at a time, don't you? Defensive, he doesn't put an awful lot wrong, does he? But offensive,
second highest rated player on FOTMob, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can go anywhere between sort of 5 and 9, depending on your outlook on him, really, can't you? But I'll go somewhere in the middle and give him a 7.
Fair enough. Jimmy husband, Mitch, another great performance from Big Jimbo.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was genuinely thinking, we didn't do a Port Vale one, but I was genuinely thinking that he was probably up there for 9 plus 10 for Port Vale. He wasn't quite as good as he was against Port Vale, but he was good again. Both boxes nearly scored for us. We missed that one, the little toe poke from Jimbo that got clawed out in the corner. Defensively, decent enough. Not perfect, but decent enough. I just think he's such a driving force for us at the moment. I'd probably go 8 plus for him.
Yeah,
he's exceptional at this level.
Yeah.
He's
a
right
class
up there.
act, isn't he?
He's
He's
right
an absolute
up
class
there.
act.
He's right up there at this level.
Right, the chips have fallen and they've landed on CJ Hamilton, Tim. Right wing back.
In defence of CJ Hamilton, his plea of mitigation is on the wrong side.
I hope he's in court. Here we go.
He's on the wrong side, my lord. He's got his fucked off. He won't hear me. Yeah, but listen, that's his plea mitigation is on the wrong side.
He's on the wrong side and wrong position. He ain't a win back either. Is he?
No,
He's a winger.
I
That's
think
what he is.
at a 4-4-2. My ideal scenario with CJ is that he's a sub in a 4-4-2, and when we need Plan B on 70 minutes, that Critchley brings him on. That's where I see CJ in our team. If we've got the team that's going to get us promoted out of this league, if we're starting with CJ in this league, then frankly, we ain't going up. And that's not me hating him. That's just the reality of the situation. I don't think we're going up as I predicted with him starting, whether it be on the left or on the right.
What's the score?
6 plus.
Okay, across the midfield. Let's go on the left-hand side. Andy Lyons, Matt. Wasted out there.
Yeah, you do feel it, don't you? And the work that he can do just seems to get smothered by this positional play that we've got him in at the moment. Almost anonymous, quite honestly, just like half a dozen others possibly. I think 6 personally.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, it's the middle 3. Mitch, Albie Morgan. Busy, I think, is the word I used to describe him.
Yeah, I mean, he's nearly good, but he doesn't quite do it.
That's perfect.
He takes the ball well. He looks technically good. He kind of buzzes around, but he doesn't. I don't know if it's the players around him or him, if that makes sense. I don't know if he would be a great asset in a side that was really bombing forward and getting more players forward, and there was more creativity in it, or whether this is just him, where he's going to buzz around and look neat and tidy and have, a shot per game and maybe a through ball per game and put a couple of nice balls in, and that's it.
He's not Keshi Anderson, is he?
No, he's not. He's Ethan Robson plus for me so far, as I said last time. But
that's very apt.
Mm.
Yeah, but he didn't. He probably, of the midfielders, he was the one that did try to make something happen. He did try to make something happen. He was busy, so
his corners are all right. To be fair,
I say 7+.
That is what was in my head, John. You've got me out of that monologue.
Scooped that number out of your head. Right. Ollie Norburn, Tim, cut a frustrated figure. I'll say kind of a lack of class around him.
I think probably there's a bit of that going on, isn't there? Where I didn't know a great deal about him before, and I'd seen him play against us, and I thought he was going to play slightly more advanced than he did. But on Tuesday, I felt that he was very deep, and
he had to go deep to get the ball because no one else was showing.
I think that's probably right. But then when you've got your centre back launching the balls rather than passing it to feet, then you missed out, aren't you, as well? So, you want this... Sorry, I'm going to use the vernacular of dicking about at the back between the back three, because that's what keeps doing, pass, launch. Then you end up missing out the midfield most of the time, which is... So when you've actually got somebody who's got a bit of quality, which he has, then I can completely understand the frustration that he will feel if it's not happening. And I don't think he's got the right people. I don't think we've got the blend right in midfield at all.
Mm.
I think that listen. Oh, I don't know. I'll come back to I won't say something about Critchley at the end, but I think Critchley needs somebody experienced alongside him to talk him out of some of the stupid ideas he's got. And he had that with Calderwood, and he had that with McCall. And he's not had. With the guy, what's he called? The guy's got who always follows him around.
Run-skill.
Yeah, I don't think he gets that with them. I think Neil.
You get the impression that they're a bunch of yes men.
Yeah, and what you need is someone to say, "Fuck off, Neil."
We like a stat. We like a stat, don't we?
Yeah. So what we want is someone to say, "Fuck off, Neil. That doesn't work. You need to do this." And and to be fair to Neil, he'll probably go, "Actually, that makes sense." And he'll go with it. But if nobody's there banging that in his ear, then we get this nonsense. We get this nonsense football. We got that nonsense football at the beginning of the 2020-2021 season. Where we had the worst centre-back partnership of all time.
I remember that. Who was it? I remember that.
It's true. It was
Marv was one of them, wasn't he?
Marv was one of them.
It was Marvin and Michael
Nottingham.
Him and the Sheriff. It was the worst centre-back partnership of all history.
It was.
And it's because it was disorganised. And as soon as you put Marv with Keogh, he looks like a world beater. And that's because somebody was talking to Critchley about that. And it's all about partnerships at football. And with the best will in the world, nobody knows everything, and he needs some. For me, he needs someone alongside him who's going to replicate what he had with Calderwood and what he had with McCall and what he's had with others.
Well, Tim, I can say I don't know why I did this, but I spent about half an hour this afternoon working out Critch's entire career record based on who has been his assistant managers.
It was a sunny day when you get out.
I was waiting for the lad to get sorted so he could go out. And what else are you going to do in that half an hour while he's still in bed? And he's played 59 games with a combination of Calderwood or McCall. And of that 59 games, he won 30 of them. So that's a well over 50% win average. With either Mike Garrity on his own or with Brunskill and Garrity, he's played 49 games and he's only won 14 of them.
Wow.
And that's,
That is a
stat. Now, those stats, I'm not saying
I doff my cap.
There might
cap to that.
There might be a game here or there. I've not done it in a spreadsheet or anything yet to work it all out, but that's definitely the trend. I mean, those numbers are more or less right because I sat there and literally totaled it all up.
We saw it, Mitch, didn't we? We saw it with our own eyes. We saw the change when Calderwood came in. We saw the difference.
Yes,
massive.
And for me, it comes down to a couple of things. I think it comes down to possibly Critchley is he's very keen on coaching and the idea that you can improve players and you can coach, and I think possibly sometimes an experienced assistant will say, "Look, just do what works."
Pragmatic.
Yes,
pragmatism. And listen, and generally it's that. Obviously, Calderwood, McCall played sort of central defensive midfield, didn't he? Calderwood centre back, pragmatic players, pragmatic people, and people who Critchley will actually listen to because they've played at a reasonably high level in the game, both of them, haven't they? So you listen to them, and the best coaches in the world, the best managers in the world will listen to what people say to them. Listen, without being going too corny, going back to Liverpool boot room, I'm quite sure Paisley listened to all sorts of stuff that came from the people in that room and didn't make decisions on his own. Nobody will generally make the right decision in football if they just listen to themselves. I think it's important that they have experienced people they can listen to. That stat is quite stark. And I think it just basically tells us what we already knew, that he needs a good person next to him.
Anyway.
Was that an 8?
Oh, yeah, we did. We've had a slight detour here, haven't we? Gosh, I don't know what I think of.
Number 6 plus. I think it's the worst game for us, I think.
I've got to go for 7. I'm going to give him a 7 because I think he's a quality player and I'm not going to. It wasn't his best effort.
Jensen Weir, Matt. I forgot he was actually playing. Matt.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's not my name.
Name changed by deed poll put on your to-do list this week.
Yeah, it's just like the game itself, really, didn't it? It started okay for him and then just sort of petered away. I think there's definitely an improvement coming with him. I think he will be a decent player for his stats from last year. Back that up. Going back to stats, we've just got to get him in the right position and get the ball to him, and maybe he's just needs to, sort of stamp his authority on that midfield as well, and try and be the main man in there because nobody else is particularly doing that at the moment. So there's an opportunity there for him. But I think he did okay, but it was, he did get hooked off, didn't he, at some point? So I don't know. Let's give him a generous 7.
Okay. Shane Lavery, Mitch, cut a forlorn figure once again. Frustrated figure.
He did, but he kept going. He had the 3 decent efforts on goal, and I know, some people may. So there was a comment before, saying, Lavery needs 6 or 7 chances, but to be fair to him, he's had maybe 3 or 4 efforts in that game. He's got them all there or thereabouts. The first effort, I thought he hit well, good save. He hit the base of the post, and I thought he did very well with that one late on because he had 2 bigger lads in him, and he muscled them off the ball and probably just a little bit off balance, not quite the right angle for the shot. I think he kept going very well in a difficult game, and I think he's got to get some credit for that. So I will go. The 7+ is sticking in my head. I think 7+ is fair. I think 8- feels a bit exotic for a 0-0.
Finally, to wrap up this sorry affair, Jake, Beasley, Tim.
Along with CJ, if he plays week in, week out, we ain't going up. the long and the short of it. It's not pretty. It's not something I want to say particularly, but it's true. He's not a top-end League One centre-forward. Or if he is, he hasn't demonstrated it yet. He definitely wasn't a Championship centre-forward.
The ball doesn't seem to stick like it does.
Listen, he had little bits. He had little bits on Saturday. Listen, I'm not for doing people down. He did little bits on Saturday that were okay, but that's about it. To me, that seems like it's as good as it's ever going to get, and that's for me. Hand and heart. That's not good enough for Blackpool Football Club.
Score, Tim.
No, I can't. 6. I was going to go lower. 6. He actually did okay. I'd give him 5 based on his contribution overall this season, but I actually do think he was sort of okay in the first half.
The poor lad's got to follow up Gary Medine, hasn't he? He's always going to look crap.
He's
on a hide into nothing.
He's not even the poor man's Gary Medine, is he? Really, that's the problem. And listen, I was so optimistic 2 weeks ago.
You sound like a broken man, Tim.
I feel like a broken man because I've watched the same play. Must be 40 times since, which is the same thing we're trying to do. And it's Albert Einstein, wasn't it, who said
definition of madness.
Insanity is the definition of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And
which moves us nicely onto manager rating.
Do you want me to go first or something?
Well, you were on a rant, weren't you? So
I'm on a rant. I'm going to rant, so I'm going to go 4. It's absolutely shocking so far.
That was the number that was in my head too, was 4. I mean, it's not diabolical, disgusting, awful, terrible, but it's not inspirational, exciting, and there's things that I feel like he isn't doing that he could be doing. As I said at the beginning, I have sympathy for the fact he's taken over a shambolic side that had a dreadful season and he's got to put some confidence in them and all of that. I do have sympathy with that, and I think some of the things he is doing is obviously we're more disciplined, we look a bit fitter, we're not getting 10 red cards a season, etc. But we're 0-0 at home. Throw Marvin up front. Do something. Try and win the game. And that's frustrating me. Is that not risking it for the sake of 3 points against sides that if you're not going to risk it against those teams, then what are you going to do when we play better teams?
But Mitch, let's listen. The 2 shittest teams in last year's division were us and Wigan have won the first 4 games. And I was actually positive about the fact we kept the majority of that team together. We should be dominating this division. We should be. We might need a centre forward, but we should be dominating this division. But we're not. And
we've shown no signs of dominance, have we? Apart from maybe a 20-minute against Burton where we got in the faces and but that's not. I don't know if we'd won one game 4-0 and lost one game 4-0, you might go, yeah, well, we had that moment and we looked really good then and we just need to do that more often. It's just we've shown so little. It's weird. The best we've probably played is Derby in the Cup with the reserves playing. But, it's actually a better start than 2021, isn't it? And he's always crap against crap teams, and we always play better under Critchley against good teams. So I'm glad I've got my Lincoln ticket because that's where it's all going to turn. Or be 0-0.
What scores have you, Matt's, given then?
For the manager, I can't go much different than 4 either, really. I mean, maybe 5, just because it was 0 at the other end. So, thinking on the positive side of life, we're obviously very good at. Well, I wouldn't say we're very good at the back. Sometimes we're quite lucky, but it's working out okay at the back. And this foundation that we're building just needs to be done and dusted now. And let's move on to the first floor and the extension and all the rest of it, and start bloody being a bit more positive in the second half of the pitch, please. Thank you.
Mitch, do you give a 4?
I gave a 4, yeah.
You did, didn't you? Yeah. Man of the match before we go.
Oh,
Jimmy.
God, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, Jimbo. I don't even know if he was man of the match for this, but I'm giving him man of the match for Port Vale. He was that good. He deserves it for this.
He deserves it for both, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, if we did it combined, without a shadow of a doubt. It was quite interesting. I saw some AVFTT do an analogy about Critchley coming back, which was, it's like you go away and have a great holiday somewhere, and you do all the great stuff, and then you go back. Then you actually go back again the following year because it was so good. But actually, everything else, it isn't quite as good the second time round. And I've got a bit of a feeling of that at the moment, that it's just like, we remember the best bits of Critchley, don't we? But we're sort of seeing we are now seeing the stuff that we actually were moaning about back in that COVID year where we couldn't go. What
he needs to appreciate is, Critchley, that we've had an absolutely abysmal season watching abysmal football for an entire season. And to have this served at us yet, 3 or 4 games in, it's not on. It's not on.
It's more than that, isn't it? It's because, I mean, since the boycott, I mean, Mick Phillips was hardly champagne football, was he? And then we got Grayson and his wonky formation where it made no sense, and he just lumped it up at Nando, or Feeney to Nando, and that was it. And then Critch, then we got COVID, so we had to stay out of the ground again. And Critch was not exactly thrill a minute. The championship was great. It was great being in the championship that first season under Critch, but it was very rugged. And then Appleton came in and he sort of tried to play football, but it didn't really work. So you couldn't really tell that we were trying to play football. Then we had Big Mick. And then we just had that like tiny little nugget of Dobby where actually we all went, oh, this is quite nice watching the football team. And then it's back, and Critch is kind of giving it all, it's all about possession and this and that. And it's like, again, I go back to, you take your lad, I take a kid, there's loads of kids in the ground, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. It's just dull. And we've not had an exciting manager for
and also when you've got somebody who's got a background in under 23 football, why isn't he got Apter on the bench? Why hasn't he got Brad Holmes in reserve? Because Dobby did. Dobby was like I can't
Lancashire as well.
Lancashire.
It's not Lancashire. Lancashire. He gave him his debut,
and he was
wonderful. Right or the wrong thing to do.
It's great under Dobby. Football was great under Dobby. Just to stop you mid-flow, before I forget, you're speaking of, we want to attract kids, youngsters into the ground. I've been working with something with BST where they've purchased an adults and a child's season ticket, and I've been tasked with dishing it out to different grassroots parents and child. So there's been 3 games now where if anyone's watching this or listening and you want to bring your son or your daughter, as long as you're involved in a grassroots football team and you want to go to the game, just let me know and we'll sort out a ticket for you. But my point is, we're trying to get Man United and Liverpool shirts out of Blackpool.
100%.
We want those shirts out. We want people supporting Blackpool. So this initiative is great from BST. But if these kids who've never seen Blackpool before are coming down and they're watching that, they're not going to go again.
Well, I don't.
No, honestly, I don't. I don't want to go anymore.
No.
In
all seriousness, I know people who even they've got season tickets aren't going because they're already bored.
Yeah, well, let's talk about attendances then just before we go. Oh, great attendances at home, over 10,000 every game. That's going to drop off, surely.
You would think so, wouldn't you? And obviously, there's the sort of hardcore away fans, and 750 or whatever it was at Exeter. I'm not quite sure what the following will be for Lincoln, but if we're pushing a 1,000 plus at Lincoln, that's still a great following. But like you say, you've got to produce us something on the pitch to make us want to travel 3.25 hours to Lincoln or whatever it's going to end up being on Saturday, and bring the kids back week in, week out, pulling at mum and dad's sort of like, come on, take me to Bloomfield Road again and all that. But it's a very difficult sort of sell at the moment, isn't it? Trying to get anybody who's, dare I say, it's sort of like more of your casual fan, not one of the 8,000 season ticket holders, to turn up and part with the hard earned to not necessarily be entertained for 99 minutes or whatever it is these days. So, yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. But one thing I will say is that I'm going on holiday a week today, so I can guarantee we'll smash Wigan 6-0. Because that's just the way it's gone for me this last week or so.
Not if we set up like that, we won't, Matt. I'll guarantee.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Just right, while you're on about, just before you go, because you've mentioned about the tickets given out. Listen, we've got plenty of patrons on here. That's funded by people joining the lottery that BST run. So if you can join it. Matt's been probably the most successful recipient of cash and prizes.
Well, I didn't take the cash, Tim, because I thought after having won Gary Madine's shirt, that would be enough. That's basically a priceless gift.
Listen, all the proceeds go into that stuff that John just mentioned and doing mascot packages. It's literally every penny goes into that, and that's what it's all about. So it's about getting kids engaged with Blackpool Football Club. So listen, it's not a lot, and you can win. You could be as successful as Matt. And I've won 0 since joining, but Matt's won twice, so we'll see.
What's the name of the draw again?
It's the BST draw. So if you go to BST's
it's the 1953
website,
draw, isn't it?
Yeah, the 1953 draw. It literally comes up. If you go to the BST website, it's like hits you like a spade in your face. That it's the first thing you come across. So, and it's like a quid a week or something, Matt? I can't remember now.
Yeah, it's something like that. It might be. I can't remember if it's a £5 a month or £3 a month.
And John's put the link in. Listen, there's probably 2,000 people could listen to this. So listen, a few of you join, and we could do more because none of it goes anywhere else other than straight back into the club. So
1953.live is the URL.
I'm sure.
I don't do it myself.
I'm sure the guys on here are all on it already. I'm sure, but
I'm not. I'm going to start doing it now. Right, gents. I think we'll call it an evening. Hopefully, whoever's been watching and listening to this has been slightly entertained. I know a certain someone probably won't be, but oh well. So we'll leave it. We'll leave it there then. What we're going to say. Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, do like and subscribe to the channel. I keep banging on about this. Loads of people watch these videos, but not everyone's subscribing. So hit that subscribe button. I'm talking to the camera. Someone's told me to do that. Right, we've got Lincoln away coming up. I'm sure we'll be coming back after that. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for downloading. Let's hope Critchley changes his ways and we see some good, positive attacking football and we go on to smash the Imps. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for downloading. And up the pool.
Up the pool!
Up the pool!
Up the pool!